Hello, welcome to Bear in Mind's Xbox predictions. So tomorrow, well, not tomorrow, in 2 days' time.
Thursday, the 23rd.
On Thursday, yeah. Microsoft have their next Xbox showcase. This time heavily focusing on first-party games. I think obviously everyone agrees, Microsoft probably included, that they need to really deliver on this one after the general negative response to their third party.
I think the negative response was overblown a little bit. It comes down to Microsoft and Ubisoft both using a very liberal definition of gameplay, right?
Yes, yeah, very liberal.
Take that out of the showcase, and I thought some interesting stuff got shown at the third party event.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I don't think you're incorrect there. I think there was a couple of indie things in particular that looked intriguing. But I think that, as you say, the problem was it was the liberal use of the term excuse me, gameplay footage from both Microsoft and Ubisoft. Although I think Microsoft's defense, potentially they didn't necessarily know what Ubisoft was actually going to show off.
Yeah.
Until quite late in the game, and at that point, they'd already used those magic words of gameplay. So it was a bit, bit unfortunate for them. Obviously, after that came the PlayStation event, which was, as we come to expect from Sony when they do this style of thing. Obviously, this was a digital version, but this was essentially what they have become famous for their E3 and E3-like events. It was pretty much exactly what they would have done in a live theatre situation, but just a digital version.
Sony had the advantage of also being able to reveal the console, right?
They had that. I think they also had...
So you can end it on...
Yeah.
Sony show some great games, but they also have the advantage of being able to end it on, and here is the...
Yeah, and an interesting design of console as well. It's not like they just threw together some boring thing that, as much as I actually quite like the Series X design because it is different, it's quite dull at the same time.
I don't know if it is, because you've got the green highlights.
No, I mean it's
a tower block.
Yeah, it's a black rectangle, but as far as black rectangles go, it's actually quite a nicely designed one.
And I think less polarizing than the Sony design.
Certainly less polarizing. I think that although obviously in theory the Sony design fits more with the conventions of what we expect from games console designs, in that it can be vertical, it can be horizontal. Although it's an absolute unit. In theory, it fits into what we expect from the shape and orientation of things. Whereas the Series X is a slightly odd thing in that it is... A lot of people are considering where are they going to put it.
The Series X feels like something that looks and is designed for gamers, while the PS5 feels like it potentially fits into a modern smart home with a lot of white smart speakers.
Yes.
Dotted around the place.
See, I also, and I mean, obviously not on camera, but we've discussed the fact that I think that the Xbox takes some design elements from what we've now think of as smart speakers. It has that tower thing that just sits there, and instead of it being necessarily segregated or relegated to being next to your television, or hiding away in a drawer where you keep all of or a cabinet where you keep all of your electronics, it's maybe something actually, because as chunky as it is, it's actually really only just a square, similar maybe in size to like a Mac Mini, that you could put on a piece of furniture adjacent to your television, as long as the cable was long enough to get it into your TV. So it sort of fits the aesthetic of things like Alexa and stuff like that.
Yeah,
obviously, it's more jagged than Alexa, but like it fits that sort of idea.
And I think before getting into predictions of what they may or may not show at the event, we should probably discuss the big news they have announced.
Yes.
xCloud, Microsoft's cloud streaming platform to compete with things like Stadia, is going to be included in the cost of Game Pass Ultimate, and the price will not be going up on Game Pass Ultimate. So that is $11.99 a month for Game Pass for console, Game Pass for PC.
Isn't it?
Pardon, sorry?
That's £11.99 in pounds, isn't it?
It is, yes, $11.99 in pounds.
It's $14.99 in US dollars. Yeah.
Well, that will include Game Pass for console, Game Pass for PC, and xCloud, which is very, very good value for money.
It's fantastic.
At the moment, it also includes Gold, but rumours are they're potentially dropping that or just dropping the branding of it and having Game Pass be.
I mean, to be honest, the price of how good Game Pass Ultimate is.
I mean, it's so good. I bought an Xbox One S for it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at the price of how good like Game Pass Ultimate is, there is a reasonable justification for them to essentially make you pay £12 a month instead of paying £50-60 a year for whatever the price of Xbox Live Gold is. I mean, it is up from essentially £5 a month to £12 a month, but then you are getting an absolute shit ton of free games.
Yeah, I mean, every Microsoft exclusive title. So, in theory, everything that's announced at this Thursday's event, will be on Game Pass.
You get for £12 a month, which is superb value. I know there'll be a few moaners out there that'll be, oh well, I don't want to pay that extra thing, but Microsoft probably have they've probably done the metrics. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a staggeringly large proportion of people who now have Game Pass Ultimate instead of just having Xbox Live Gold. And if that, I mean, to be honest, even if it's only 60% of the install base.
Well, at the start of this generation, right, I had no interest in having an Xbox. I would have probably gone through this generation without ever owning one.
Yeah.
But like that product made me very much, and the low cost of the One S.
Yeah.
Made it a very fine impulse purchase.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's been the key motivation for myself. That if I was going to get one, that obviously Game Pass and the Xbox One S is still the best value 4K Blu-ray player on the market. And as I don't have a 4K Blu-ray player, and Sony didn't put one in the PS4 Pro, then it has been a temptation. And to be honest, if I could have afforded one, then by now I certainly would have had one of the Xboxes. I think it would be the One S.
Let's say that Microsoft manages to pick up pace with their own studios and start matching Sony for releases, right? So you get a first-party title every 2 months, say.
I think it's unlikely we get every 2 months, but I could see it being maybe.
We'll build up to that pace eventually, though, as this generation goes.
I mean, even Sony don't necessarily do that. That like not as in the mega titles anyway. They might have some smaller titles.
It feels throughout the year that you get a first-party Sony title every couple of months.
To be honest, I'd be happy if it was like 3 a year. I think if there were like 3 tentpoles a year, because like in theory, especially with the new prices of games speculated to be $70 in the States, so
yeah. Although I'm more going here for the money value, right? So say you get, and maybe they're not all AAA titles. Maybe you get a Double Fine title.
Yeah, Yeah.
But say roughly something officially from Microsoft is coming out once every couple of months.
Yeah.
Like to go to a shop and buy that game if you're wanting to buy all first party titles, you're paying 40, 50, 60, maybe even £70 this generation. Or it's on Game Pass that you've already paid your £12 for that month.
Yeah, I mean, like, because the whole year of Game Pass is 144 quid. And that's Game Pass Ultimate as well. So like a whole year of that is 144 quid, which means that even if it were only 3 AAA titles at 50 quid a pop, you've already saved £6 there.
And that's only taken into account for first party titles, right?
Yeah.
Game Pass is also full of non-first party titles.
Yeah.
It's full of indie classics. It's absolutely heaving full of games worth playing.
And with xCloud added to it as well, which now there's been some confusion with xCloud because obviously at the moment they're just trialing it with some set games, but it seems to be that xCloud is a service for whatever your collection is, as opposed to whatever the it's not necessarily a case of being able to play every Xbox game ever on demand.
I believe from what we've said recently, it's going to be whatever's on Game Pass.
Yeah, it's whatever's on Game Pass and or therefore whatever's in your collection. So, because obviously, essentially, if you've got Game Pass, that's in your collection. So everything that's on Game Pass, you've got the access to play remotely somehow, whether that be through mobile phones, PCs, even lesser consoles. Because obviously, one of the other pieces of news this week was, or last week, was that the discontinuation of production on the Xbox One SAD edition and the Xbox One X, leaving only the One S with the disc and the most likely 2 incoming consoles later in the year. Which, great news, certainly makes it a bit more streamlined, because it would have got really messy, especially in traditional retail, or even for people maybe buying a console as a gift who weren't necessarily gamers. If they'd gone online onto Amazon or wherever and seen 5 active Xboxes, that could have caused a bit of grief.
Also, depending on what prices they're introducing things at, there might not be a slot for something like the One X to sensibly sit in that makes it a sensible purchase.
Too close in power to whatever the Lockhart is.
Yeah.
The price difference, and especially if Lockhart doesn't have an optical drive in it, and the One X still did, the cost difference would probably be so close.
Yeah. So it makes more sense to discontinue it than leave it.
Exactly.
Around.
Yeah, I mean, what's the point in maintaining it? So,
as Microsoft have promised 2 years worth of their games being backwards and forwards compatible, right? Because Microsoft is really harping up the idea that they don't want to force anyone into the next gen, which is a very different attitude than we've ever really seen before.
Yeah.
In video games. They're on paper saying we do not want anyone to have to buy the next gen console.
Yeah.
Now we know that's not all games. For example, at the third party event, there was that survival horror they showed off. That is coming to Game Pass at launch, but is an Xbox Series X exclusive.
Yes.
And I think that would be interesting as well. Like, is that going to be available on xCloud?
I mean, hopefully, yeah. Because obviously, because
it's being advertised as a Series X exclusive, you've got to have a Series X to play it.
Yeah.
But if Series X games are playable on xCloud, it all depends, I guess, what they're running the games on xCloud. They might have a whole shed ton of banks of One X's, right? And that's what they're running the xCloud games on. And because they know all their games, at least for the next 2 years, are going to be available, playable on the One X, they might over the next 2 years slowly swap that bank of One X's that are playing these games remotely out for Series X's. But it may mean that there is a couple of games that are Series X exclusive that maybe won't be on xCloud. You still do need a Series X. You get them in Game Pass, but you do need a Series X yourself to play them.
Maybe. I mean, I know that Phil Spencer has said recently that Xbox first-party studios, if they really, really want to, are welcome to make a game that is Xbox Series X exclusive.
Yeah.
And now, what would be more interesting for me, not necessarily is it going to be streamable for through xCloud for the One S, is this game, which comes out for a new generation, going to play on Lockhart? Because that's where it gets slightly strange messaging. Is that if you're releasing essentially 2 new consoles at exactly the same time that are meant to be partner consoles, do you already put a game behind the locked wall that only the more expensive, more powerful?
I would imagine baseline it's got to play if it's only the Series X, because it's going to be Lockhart will be a Series X model, right? It's going to be be Series X something, or
it'll be Series S.
It may be
like that. It'll be Series S, or if they don't want to have confusion with the One S, it'll be the Series T or the Series R or something like that.
Yeah,
it won't have the same lettering.
It's why I'm still not 100% convinced. I know certainly a Lockhart has existed. That seems pretty definite at this point.
Yeah.
It's why I'm still not 100% convinced they are going to do a Lockhart. I still will not be surprised to see them aggressively priced for Series X just below the PlayStation and discount for Lockhart entirely.
I think
that's why they haven't announced for Lockhart, right? I think Microsoft still hasn't quite settled on what it's going to do. It feels like it's entirely waiting for Sony to announce a price, and then it's going to just come in and...
I mean, that is a chance. That is certainly a chance, because obviously, I suppose if Sony go, all right, here's the prices, and Microsoft can afford to take a hit, and even if it's a case of putting the Series X at the same price as the PlayStation 5 Digital Edition, that will be all right. Like, they don't have to undercut the Digital Edition.
But then you also don't need a Lockhart.
But then at that point, they don't also need a Lockhart. The issue that Microsoft will have is that the rumors have always been that the Lockhart was going to be significantly less powerful than the Series X.
Yeah.
Probably more powerful than a One X, but therefore sitting somewhere between the One X and the PlayStation 5. So it will still be quite a hefty machine, but they've got to balance that price as much as anything else to make sure that, like, if Sony go to 400 for their digital version of the PlayStation 5, they've got to make sure that Lockhart is cheaper than the digital version, because I think that's almost actually going to be where the real battleground is, because that's where the majority of the sales are going to come.
See, both companies are playing vastly different games right now. Like, I don't think Microsoft anymore is in the market of making and selling games consoles, and I think this may be the last one we see from them.
Maybe.
I think Sony still is very much in that market. But I'm not sure if that's the market of... We're at that moment where I think it's weird, because if the future is cloud gaming, right? I've dabbled in Stadia. If you've got a good internet connection, it works. Stadia's biggest problem is the lack of games than it not actually working. Its biggest problem is the lack of games and the expense of games.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those games are older and cheaper elsewhere.
Yeah.
Stadia's problem is software, not hardware, right?
Mm.
I've got Assassin's Creed Odyssey on Stadia, and I've played it a few times, and it plays incredibly well, and probably actually plays better and looks better than it would on my launch PS4.
Mm.
However, Microsoft does not have that problem of lack of games for xCloud when it launches.
No, it's going to have. I mean, even if all third parties just went, no, mate, the amount of actual Xbox exclusives, I mean, they're not going to, but the amount of actual for xCloud, like even if all third parties suddenly turned around and went, no, we're not having this, like there's such an abundance of Xbox exclusives that Xbox xCloud out of the gate, there's something to play.
You're a lapsed Halo fan, right?
Me?
So no, I'm not saying you. You're a lapsed Halo fan. Hey, I know you don't want to buy a console.
Yeah.
But do you want to play Halo on your phone?
Mm.
$11.99.
Yeah.
Like it's.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's not even just the phone. Like for me, I would never play it on a phone. Like nothing like that. I wouldn't.
Modern phone screens, what?
At
least if you've got a flagship.
They're excellent, but I just wouldn't want anything that small. However, with the abundance of tablets in the market now as well, which have bigger and just as nice screens, that's where like some of the gaming is going to be. Like if you can get a good internet connection, like a really good internet connection, like that's incredible.
Like especially as 5G starts to roll out more, right?
Yeah, I mean, assuming the data caps are like high enough.
Yeah, I know in this country you've got companies like Vodafone who are really like they're offering 5G at different price brackets, and at the cheaper price brackets it's slower than 4G. It's like,
what's the point?
Yeah, like it's but a lot of phones are 6 inches, right? Now that's not really any smaller than a Switch screen.
It's not significantly, no. Although it's a different dimension.
So on a control pad with one of those brackets on it, throw it in your backpack.
Yeah.
You're on a long train journey, and assuming you get 5G on said train journey, get a quick game of a Halo in.
Speaking of which, have you seen the new portable Xbox controllers?
I have not, no.
Yeah, you know, a couple of years back, Sony allowed one of the third-party control pad manufacturers
to make the kiddie
one.
Yeah.
Xbox have a similar one, but it's designed for traveling.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's their xCloud controller.
To be fair, it's not like this thing's big, right?
No, it's not. It's not. But it's this one's nearly flat.
Yeah.
It's just that little bit more suitable for like putting it in your small bag, or even just put it in your pocket. Or
I guess that's the thing. I always travel with a backpack, so.
Yeah, I mean, sure, if you travel with a backpack, like happy days. But if you you don't travel with a backpack, but you just travel, like say, with a little like man bag or a handbag or whatever, or even just in your pockets, like it's I think from the looks of it, it was like a thick phone more than anything else in size. So like probably similar dimensions to my phone, but maybe twice the thickness.
That's the other thing. I'd never do it, but if they introduce on-screen controls as well, some people might.
Yeah, and those people shouldn't be allowed to game. Like,
I don't know. Like
it depends on the game, I think. Like,
you've got
an arcade driving game or something like that, and like go for it.
And you've got more and more people who've grown up playing mobile games with on-screen controls, right? Like it's something that is alien to us, but not necessarily alien.
True.
To everyone. Like I've been dabbling in Apple Arcade, which I think is one of the other great deals in gaming at the moment. If you have an Apple device, $4.99 for like, there's nothing on it there's no Halo or Uncharted or.
No, there will be.
no, it's not designed for that, right?
No.
But $4.99 for a bunch of very good mobile games that you can now, and it's very easy now to Bluetooth both a PS4 controller and an Xbox controller up to an iPad. I found a game on it recently called Guildlings that I've been enjoying.
Yes, I remember you saying.
And I brought my iPad down here, and the USB-C cable I pop into my Mac for the second screen, I popped into the bottom of my iPad. So it threw my iPad up, and I was playing it on a 27-inch monitor.
Oh, nice.
As opposed to the iPad screen. And again, if you like a lot of fun little indie quirky games, that's another kind of video game subscription service that's very worth the $4.99 a month. It's
which
asking for it.
Obviously, we roll that back around to Xbox. One of the things that we will see on Thursday is the Idea Xbox, which is their Xbox's independent initiative.
Yes.
So we'll probably see some games that would be potentially iPhone worthy and above at Xbox as well. So you'll get all those juicy little indies potentially coming to Game Pass and xCloud as well.
Yeah. I mean, they already have a good relationship, I think, because you see a lot of indies show up at launch day on Game Pass.
I think
last year we got not Outer Worlds, but Outer Wilds. Outer Wilds, yes, that's the one.
That one.
Both showed up at launch on Game Pass. Both great games, but like one of them obviously being an indie darling of last year.
Yeah.
I know Thingy's on there now, No Man's Sky, that I really need to, because apparently again the latest update for No Man's Sky is apparently now there's derelict freighters full of bugs for you to shoot.
Yeah.
So you've got like little dungeons just floating around for you to land on, and that game sounds amazing. And I tried to get into it the other day, but there's a lot of building stuff at the start, and I kind of want to do other stuff.
You want to get beyond that.
Yeah.
But I think there's a general feeling actually across the board now that with all three of the major console manufacturers that they do support indies quite nicely. And I think it's because partly because anyway that our expectations of what first party exclusives now should be are such big grand AAA games that it's a way of them spending relatively small amounts of money to get ultra creative people to make something.
Yeah.
And obviously if something works or something sticks, or you find you find that a little studio actually is very good, you can then give them a bit more money and see what they can do with that. Like, because we don't have what used to be termed the AA tier anymore. Not really. Although it does seem to potentially be coming back with games like Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and
that's not a AA. That's not a AA title. It's a small expansion to a AAA title.
Well, all right then. We'll say
a AA title. Like if we're going back, your AA titles were things like Red Faction, and they were AA titles. Okay,
well, I'm more looking. I was more thinking AA as pricing as opposed to like, because especially with the increase in price this generation.
Hellblade's a prime example of a AA title.
Exactly. We might see some more what used to be considered as AA titles.
AA games were never any AAA games. They were just not as well.
Well, I think we might see more £40 games.
Yeah.
In the new, like, because especially if the big boys, which fair enough, like other than the ones that have shit tons of microtransactions, the big boys do cost a hell of a lot of money to make. So why not charge like 60-70 quid for them?
Well, I think this is potentially a topic for a different.
For a different show, but I think that like I'm hoping that with things like Idea Xbox and the PlayStation indies and things like that, that some of these larger indies or the ones that have proven themselves might get that little bit of backing from Sony and Microsoft and what have you.
We are in the realm where if you don't want predatory loot boxes, right?
Yeah.
And I firmly do not want predatory loot boxes.
No, God, no. No.
No, they're awful. They're morally wrong. End of.
Yeah.
But the cost of making video games means video games have to go up. Part of the problem with the attitude of predatory loot boxes is that video games haven't gone up since the PS3 era.
No, they haven't. And that was.
I mean,
and obviously,
video games
we've had two of the longest generations.
Yeah, video games were more expensive in the NES era than they are today due to inflation and the like.
Well, that and I mean, in the NES era, there were games like what was it? Was it the original Contra? I think it was the original Contra on the NES. In the States, it was $120 game.
Yeah, like
in not in inflation terms, literally it was like $120 at release.
Video games just haven't raised in line with inflation, really. They haven't.
Not really, and I think that, like as you said, I mean, when they last properly had a leap, at least worldwide, because we had a small one, I think, at the beginning of the PlayStation 4 era, but the last big leap worldwide was at the beginning of the 360 PS3 era, which, you know, the PS3 and 360 was the longest game generation there's been. We've just had the second longest game generation.
Yeah, I mean, they technically went up this gen as well. So I think the RRP for a video game during the PS3 era was $49.99.
But as I say, worldwide, I think that, like, the thing is, like, they've gone up for us in the UK. They haven't necessarily gone up for in the States. They've been RRPs at $60.
We also have supermarkets.
Yeah.
And it sounds weird, but I don't think it affects video game prices in the States like supermarkets affect video game prices here. Like, it's why I've had the discussion with some people like, oh, why not just go fully digital? And it's because in this country it's more expensive
to go digital.
Because games digital sell at RRP.
Yeah.
And the RRP for a current game is £60.
Yeah.
Your local Asda, Morrison's, Tesco sell that game for £50.
Yeah.
It's £10
or if it's
cheaper.
Something like FIFA, they might even go even further and make
use it as a loss leader.
Yeah. So you might, like, if you're a regular FIFA buyer, you are most certainly better off trying to get it through your local Tesco, because it might be as £40 on the day of release.
Yeah.
A few days later, it'll be back up to 50, but on the day of release, it might be £40.
Well, Ghost of Tsushima, right? In supermarkets at the moment, £48.
Bargain.
Yeah, and they stay on the shelves and they physical copies. Like, digital has sales throughout the year, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But the longer the game is in the charts, in the supermarket, and it's the same with, like, Game always sell at full price as well. So you're then in the point of that whole, like, oh, support your video game stores or they'll go away and things. When the UK's last video game store is Game and it's owned by Mike Ashley, I don't think that's really an argument.
No, I have no wish to go and support Mike Ashley, not at all. Yeah. So I might, if I'm going to support an unscrupulous business, this one is charging me full price, whereas this unscrupulous business is charging me 3/4 price. Where am I going to go?
Yeah, and that's something as, like, I'm a big board game player.
Really? I didn't know this at all.
So that's where I will say, okay, yeah, Amazon might have it a few quid cheaper.
Yeah.
But this local game store.
Yeah.
Like, there's a few game shops I like in Manchester, and over lockdown, they've shifted over to
online.
And one of them, Travelling Man, they have a couple of branches throughout the country, but I love their Manchester shop. They opened their online store, and it's like, you know what, I'll order a couple of things just to kind of support them. $2.99 postage. It got to me the day after I ordered it.
That'll do.
Like, yeah, if they can get to me nearly at the same speed that Amazon can get it to me,
they're
not Amazon.
Yeah.
And I buy a lot of Amazon because the truth is, in today's day and age, you can't really boycott. Well, you could, but
do the best I can. I do the best I can. They're like recent.
I've actually tried to bring down what I order.
Yeah, I mean, I when I'm searching online for things now, it used to be a case of I want this item, I'll go straight to Amazon and I'll use that essentially as a search engine.
Yeah.
Whereas now my go-to is I'm going to go to Google or whatever, and I'll search there, and I'll actively avoid Amazon unless I have to go to it.
It helps that Amazon isn't as cheap as it once was either. So the actual price difference sometimes between Amazon and an actual independent shop isn't really there.
Well, then at that point, it's probably because they've got such dominance now, they don't have to be cheap.
Yeah. Amazon is something where if I need it tomorrow,
Yeah,
I'll order from them because I do have Prime. So I'm supporting them monthly.
Yeah.
But, like,
but then you could write that off by subscribing to, by donating your free monthly Twitch Prime to someone.
Which is one way you can actually.
So then in your own head, you're writing off £5 of whatever it is a month to give to someone else. So.
Yeah. There's a board game YouTube channel called Shut Up Sit Down, and as they say, like you may as well give us some of those free Bezos books.
Yeah, exactly.
Or give them to someone because they're free.
Yeah. Anyway, back to Xbox.
So predictions for
Might
the event.
Start with Halo.
Well, I predict Halo will be there.
Oh, you got there first. James wins the points. I mean, I think the overall show is going to be similar length to the PlayStation 1 from what I've heard.
Halo will be last up.
Do you think?
They're going to end on Halo.
I'm not sure. I think if they're going to unveil the Lockhart, if they're going to do a sneaky, like a bit like Sony did.
Well, game-wise, they're going to end on Halo. They may reveal a Lockhart at the end, but game-wise, they end on Halo. They're going to play the score, and it's going to, those of us who are Halo fans are going to get moved a little bit by it. I
get moved by the Halo score because the score is fantastic. And it's
just something about that, the iconic bit, the bit I'm on about.
Yeah, I know exactly what.
Like, as soon as that kind of hits.
The thing is that the trailers do it for me. Like, I love the idea of Halo. I've just never got into it. Like, it's always just been something that's okay.
You know what?
Because I don't dislike it. That's the thing. Like, I don't dislike Halo, but I don't like it enough to dedicate enough time to actually bother.
I've mentioned it before, right? When xCloud is up and running, let's 2-player our way through Halo.
Certainly.
Maybe on Legendary?
God, no.
I've done it. I've done Halo 3 2-player on Legendary. And by done it, do you remember my friend Terrence?
Yeah.
We 2-playered our way through Halo Legendary. He played through Halo Legendary while I was on the second screen.
Getting shot all the time.
Dying, yeah.
Now, you see, if we did it on Legendary, it would be a question of who got shot more. Yeah. Would it be me or you? It would almost be a counter of like a challenge of who could die the least.
Because there's good stories to the Halo games. Certainly the original trilogy. I've not experienced a lot past Halo 3 myself, but I think they're not super long games, so I think it would be a fun project to kind of play through.
I've played the vast majority of Halo 1.
Yeah.
I've nearly completed Halo 1. I just got to I played it once the 360 had launched because I got an Xbox off of me. One of the original Xboxes that had been, it was one of the ones that had been fiddled with and had a massive hard drive in it. I say massive, it wasn't that big, not in modern terms. But I think it was like 100 meg or something daft.
Yeah.
But a big hard drive for the time that had like 10 or 12 of the top Xbox One games loaded on it, and I smashed my way through most of.
By Xbox One, you mean OG Xbox?
Yeah, the original Xbox. Sorry, yeah. And I smashed my way through most of the game, and then I just got stuck. And then I decided at that point I don't enjoy the game enough.
It does have a stark difficulty spike towards the end of it for first Halo.
Yeah. which I don't have an issue with, obviously, in a game that I'm totally into. But like,
Yeah.
it's just like it was just I couldn't I didn't care enough to bother to try and finish it.
It was groundbreaking in its time.
It certainly was. I'll never deny its impact and its influence. Same with like the first Gears of War. The first Gears of War is a terrible game now.
I actually think the first-person shooter genre would probably be in a better place if it had taken more from Halo than it had taken from COD, right?
Yeah.
Because Halo was, and you see stuff taken from Halo. I think Crysis, Far Cry, I think are more Halo inspired than they are COD inspired. Because that's the thing, first-person shooters before Call of Duty were a vastly different prospect. They weren't corridor shooters. They might have had areas that narrowed you in a bit, but they were a lot more. I mean,
but I think if they did, it was also like part of the overall design. Like my favorite first-person shooter ever is still the original Red Faction, and any of the corridor elements there, or even the wider elements, it's part of a design choice, and it's there for a reason, and it's relevant also to the story and this, that, and the other. Whereas with COD, for a large part, especially in the 360 era, the reason that COD looks and behaves the way that COD behaves is because they were using PS2 gen software engine and being forced to try and make PS3 and 360 era looking games. And
also, COD was more about the online elements than it was about and it was a very good online shooter. I just don't think it was necessarily a great single player shooter. But I do think because of its popularity, single player shooters, and not so much died out as we started calling them and thinking of them as something other than what they were. Like when you're talking about great first person shooters, you rarely talk about BioShock, right? You think of BioShock as something else, but BioShock's nothing more than a first person shooter.
It is, yeah. Although it's got that, I think, because it's got the fantasy element, because it deals with like not necessarily magic, but like science magic. That like you don't think of it in that manner, because it's like, and I think that's sort of the issue with thinking of things via perspective as a genre, because there isn't a genre.
It's a mechanic.
It's a mechanic, and that's really all it is. And
but we do tend to label video game genres by mechanic as opposed to by theme, right? Like we don't call Metal Gear Solid a weird sci-fi spy hybrid. We call it a stealth game.
Yeah.
We don't call, like, video game genres are mechanic based as opposed to
I suppose they are
theme based. For better or worse, that's just how the industry is kind of
dealt with
it. Yeah. Like platformers. Like there's a whole world of difference between, say, Mario Odyssey and Super Meat Boy.
Yeah.
Both we call both great games. Both are called platformers, but they're very different to each other.
Or you throw in something like Astrobot.
Yeah.
Which obviously Astrobot predominantly a VR experience.
I mean, we've got a genre named after literally just two completely different video game franchises, right? Mash their names together, and we've got a genre, Metroidvania. Yep. When a new genre came out, the Soulsborne genre, right?
Yeah.
Just named after the original video game. That an argument can be made that wasn't a new genre. I actually think what we refer to as Soulsborne games are an evolution of a Metroidvania.
Yeah, I mean they are. I think it's because of how hard and precise they are. Yeah. I think that's the difference. And so that's But so Halo. We're gonna get Halo.
We're gonna get gameplay, and I think a lot of it
open with Halo.
Pardon?
I think they open.
You think they'll open? we'll certainly get gameplay. We're going to see a fair amount of Halo gameplay.
I only think they open with Halo because I think it's going to be a big dive. Like, I don't think it's going to be 3 minutes. I think it's going to be more like 20. Potentially
I think
sections in it for people like me who aren't necessarily Halo people. That 20 minutes might drag.
Yeah.
Like if you're into Halo, that 20 minutes might be amazing. But I wouldn't put that at the end, because I think that, like, if that is the end,
people might just clock out.
Yeah, people might just clock out.
But when you do need a big event over when you're launching your console as the return of Halo, right? Because that's kind of what they're doing. This is the return to their most famous franchise.
Yeah. I mean, they could bookend it with Halo, because what they could do potentially is have
story trailer,
a teaser at the beginning, followed by some gameplay, followed by all the other games, and then you finish it with the actual story trailer with a 3 or 4 minute solid, like, oh my god, amazing, like, story trailer.
I think we will see an announcement of Gears Tactics for console, because it's weird that only came to PC.
Yeah, agreed.
But I think that's all we'll see from Gears.
Yeah, because the last one only came out late last year, so
yeah, we've had you might see some of the mobile game as well. But...
And the lead guy on Gears left immediately after it came out.
Yeah.
And is now working on the next Diablo.
Yeah, I do need to play Gears 5 because I've heard it's very good. I'm not a Gears fan, but I have heard 5 is good. It's got a voice actress I like in it, so I might give that a go sometime.
Well, I said Gears 1, I played on the day of release a little bit, like on a mate's console, and like dabbled in it. It was good fun. By the time
Space Invaders.
Yeah, that was the problem. By the time I actually got around to actually playing Gears 1, it had aged so badly. And it was only really at the launch of Gears 2 that I played Gears 1. So it wasn't really that long of a gap. But it went from being something that was revolutionary to like almost like, what the hell is this? It was visually, it was still quite impressive and what have you. But it was so dull that it was just the same after the same after the same. It was, I mean, a lovely game mechanic, but once you're 6 hours deep, it was just a bit.
Early Gears as well is very, very hoorah military as well.
You see, I don't mind that if it's within context, and I think within context of Gears of War, it's fine. Like
Gears of War is Starship Troopers without the satire.
Yeah,
the film, not the book.
Game, but I think it's gained it. I think the later games apparently some better humor in them.
Yes, they are. Which is why I want to try 5.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's all we'll see of Gears.
Yeah.
I think we'll see something from Double Fine.
Definitely.
As it's also a launch title, Hellblade 2.
Yeah.
Definitely be there. That will be quite interesting to see. And maybe we'll see something from their other project they're working on.
I think we'll see an update of it. I don't think it's going to be anything more than like it's on its way.
Because that's their full mental health simulator.
Yeah.
They're an interesting studio.
They've got 3 things on the way, haven't they? Because they've got 2, and then the 2 other things that they showed off that were like right at the very, very, very start of their production.
It was a good buy for Microsoft, I think, Ninja Theory.
It's an excellent buy, because with Ninja Theory, you've got a team who, if you need an action game, they can deliver an action game. In theory, with the right backing and time, they could be their answer to Naughty Dog.
They're also a team that are used to and you can use to build elements of another team's game. Like, if they're the kind of team that has very much got experience building parts of games. So say you've got a big
'Cause
story
I
game
think it's
coming
a
out.
bigger team. I think it's actually a slightly bigger team than people think it is as well.
Yeah.
Because of because they go off and do bits of this and bits of that. I think the core team's actually quite small. Whatever they make for themselves is a
Yeah.
relatively small team. But like,
Because they're a team, I think, that have farmed themselves out to get the money to make the passion projects, right?
yeah,
And because they used to behave in that way, very much you'd be like, okay, we need a fun like they've just turned out an arena shooter for Microsoft.
yeah,
It's fine, but the point is that's for, like, so say Microsoft got a game coming out, it's like we need someone to make the multiplayer for this.
yeah.
Ninja Theory, could you work on that while the team works on the single player game?
Or even just elements of their expertise. Like, I mean, they were one of the very, very first teams to do like mega crowds of NPCs. Like in Heavenly Sword, the early PlayStation 3 game. That was the first game ever to have 1,000 active NPCs on screen at the same time.
I think parts of Disney Infinity are
Yeah,
them.
they are. Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're right. They're a team that, in theory, you could give for a month here and a month there to the other studios, and say, look, you're going to go and do this, you're going to go and do that, and of course, and as a reward, we'll continue funding whatever the hell you want to do. Like, because when it does come, I mean, like, as far as their passion projects go, probably their worst game is Odyssey to the West. And that is a really good game.
Like, what allowing Ninja Theory to do what they want means is Microsoft can put some BAFTAs under its belt.
Yeah.
Because Ninja Theory games tend to win BAFTAs.
Yeah. Well, as I say, I mean, I think they are the logical answer to like the Naughty Dog question of like, how does Microsoft get a Naughty Dog? They've got Ninja Theory, and
I guess the other answer is the Initiative.
Well, maybe not.
Who is the Initiative again?
It's a group of it's a super group. It is almost literally the definition of a super group. They've cherry picked like a game director from here and an animator from there and a writer from here and all sorts. And so they've got, in theory, the super team that could make something that would blow your brain away.
Do we see what they're working on?
They've said no.
No.
They've said no. Now, of course, they could be lying through their asses. If it is a no, it's probably because even if it is ready to show something, this event is all about Halo.
Yeah.
Because if whatever they're working on is probably going to... You'd imagine they'd want it to slot into the Halo Gears something cycle so that you get one of those every 3 years.
Yeah.
And the rumors are it's Perfect Dark.
It's a franchise that could come back strong.
It's also one that's been gone so long, and the last one,
do what you want. Yeah.
Do whatever the hell you want, and obviously there's like you could critique it as saying, oh, why not a brand new IP? It might as well be a brand new IP, because really all you're doing is just like, even if what you're really doing is taking the idea of Joanna Dark and building a brand new game about it.
Which I think at this point, right, is what's worthwhile about IP, right? Joanna Dark. That's that, like, because what we're talking, Perfect Dark is an N64 game.
Yeah.
And a very early 360 game.
Dave launch.
Yeah.
Launch day.
And we've not had any Perfect Dark since then.
I mean, it was the only thing worth buying on launch day. Really.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was a good game.
But I mean, it was a good game, but it was drastically overshadowed, like, because Gears was roughly the same time, and it, excuse me, so it just kind of.
But that IP, right? It's the aesthetics that are worth.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what's worthwhile now. You don't really want to remake.
You don't want to remake it.
Yeah.
And if it were a remake, it would be in the sense of a Final Fantasy VII remake in that it's taking a framework and it's embellishing it so much that although it is a remake, it's not necessarily like it's a remake in the same way that Kong Skull Island is a remake of the original King Kong, like using King Kong, but like and some adventurous people go to an island somewhere, but that's about it.
Forza Motorsport, we'll see that.
Guaranteed, no doubt.
We won't see Horizon.
We won't see Horizon because unless Microsoft kind of pull a bit of an odd one, in the same vein of everyone expected Sony Spider-Man to be Sucker Punch, and of course it ended up being Insomniac.
Fable.
They're making Fable.
And that is a franchise I am definitely hoping to see. It's weird. It's not...
I hadn't thought about it properly until I watched Kinda Funny's debut Xcast episode the other day. And then Alana was talking about how what she's most looking forward to with Fable, and this is why she's hoping that it's the Forza Horizon team that's doing it, is the humour.
Yeah.
Because she loves British humour, and she loves the best thing about Fable was the fact that it had Python-esque humour in it, essentially. And she doesn't want an American team to be making it. She doesn't want anyone outside of British humour, essentially, to be making that game.
Like the first Fable is very fun. I don't think I finished any Fable games, and I've played, I think, all of them. But the time I did spend with all of them, I very much enjoyed. And that's not rare for me. I'm not always a big completer of games, especially if there isn't a very focused story through it.
Yeah, I think that's sort of what probably held me off with Fable and other like openish games of its era. Like it took me a while before, like I think Red Dead Redemption 1 was the first open world game that I thoroughly enjoyed, and then it kind of like changed my direction a little bit.
Well, yeah, Fable is a franchise I'm very excited by what it could be.
Yeah.
Right, and I think it could be with a mixture of studios they've got and IPs they've got and studios they've recently bought.
Yeah.
I honestly believe currently Microsoft has a stronger potential first-party stable than Sony.
Yeah.
And that's because Sony over the last generation have figured out what sells well for them.
Yeah.
And have narrowed into it. And there's nothing wrong with that.
I mean, they have. But at the same time, you've also got to think that, like, it was still a bit of a risk allowing Guerrilla to make Horizon. And it was still a risk to...
You say that, but they turned Guerrilla away from making the stuff Guerrilla used to make down the line of making a Sony game.
But it wasn't... Yeah, I mean, yes. But at the same time...
Sony has a house style.
But, I mean, Guerrilla had never made anything like that.
They hadn't. And it's great. I'm not even necessarily saying this as a bad thing. What I'm saying is that out of both companies' first-party staples, with what Sony could send them wildly out making other things again, right? But for what it at least seems that they're working on, and this isn't counting like exclusives from Square and things like like that. Even Ratchet kind of fits that. It's more fun. It's more platformy.
Yes.
But they're like, if you showed me Sony Studios and were like, hey, could any of these deliver us a better Bethesda game? My answer is no. If you show me Microsoft Studios, yes, they have Obsidian. They have Interplay.
There's a broad base. There's a broader base to build from. I don't disagree. I think again one of the things that I've seen recently is also going back to the what we were talking about with indies and double A games and stuff like that. What Microsoft have bought with the 15 studios they've currently bought is not necessarily triple A studios.
No.
They already have AAA studios. They've already got 343. They've already got the Coalition. And obviously now the Initiative, which they initially announced as a quadruple A game studio.
Yes.
And like so, with the purchasing of those 15 from the other year, they've got their AA studios. They've got their games, their teams that if it's a long game like an Obsidian game, it isn't necessarily going to be the sexiest looking game, and therefore probably isn't also going to be the most expensive to develop. So, although it is still going to be a $60 or premium price game, it's going to be one that the customers think they get good value for, and Microsoft can make decent money out of with things like Ninja Theory, for instance. Hellblade 2, if it's the same length as Hellblade 1, assuming they do sell it as opposed to just put it on behind Game Pass, that could be a $40 or $50 game.
Approach you on the same thought as not necessarily comparing Microsoft's purchase decisions to, say, Sony's. Because Sony's most recent purchase is Insomniac. Smart purchase, right? But they've purchased a studio that has always worked with them and makes Sony House style games.
But also a studio that can pump them out.
Oh yes.
Like definitely. I mean, like they make more games than like
Sony is not. Sony's still not really. It has PS Now and things.
Yeah.
Sony's not in the market of setting up a service, right? At the moment, at least, or it doesn't seem so. They want to sell you a £400 console to sell you £60 cinematic video games.
Yeah.
That's where Microsoft wants to build the Netflix of video games. So what allows you to do that more? A bunch of studios making very similar games, or a wide flavour of studios making different things.
I know you've used the analogy of Netflix. I actually think that Game Pass is closer to the WWE Network model, because just because the pay-per-views for WWE, for instance, are still widely available as pay-per-views, and for some ridiculous reason, the majority of people still press, yes, I'll buy this on pay-per-view for £25 plus. And obviously in the States, it's like $70 for WrestleMania. Like just for WrestleMania. Or you can have a month of the WWE Network for $10, which if you buy it in April, that gets you WrestleMania included. So for me, that's more where Game Pass is, because obviously you've still got Microsoft's flagship games, like when Halo comes out. You could just go, no, I don't want to play it online. I don't want Game Pass. I don't want this, that, and the other. I'm going to spend £70 on it.
The reason I use Netflix as an analogy was Stranger Things is super popular, right?
Yeah.
So, but Netflix is not solely... Netflix originals aren't just Stranger Things. As much as you might enjoy watching Stranger Things, Netflix is also going, hey, do you want to see some people pretend the floor isn't lava? We've got that for you.
Oh, yeah, I mean...
Hey, do you like watching an aging TV writer travel the world eating food? Here's a show for you.
Totally get it. I was more just thinking that, like, say, it would be closer to Netflix if Netflix was also doing cinema releases of their films.
Yeah,
So if you had that option of going and sitting in a cinema for a tenner and watching like what was the Old Guard?
Yeah.
Like if Old Guard came out of the cinema the same day it got released on Netflix, and you had the choice of either going to see it at the cinema or even, if you were dumb enough, renting it for a tenner.
Yeah.
Or just getting a Netflix subscription.
The point I was trying to get to was like you don't build a successful service without offering variety in it, right? There is the Halo.
Yeah.
But there's something completely different to Halo as well. If your focus is on building a successful streaming platform more than it is then buying a bunch of studios that make vastly different things makes more sense than training a bunch of studios into making. And there is variety. I'm saying this like there isn't any variety in Sony games. There is, obviously, but they are of a type. Like
they seem to on the surface they seem to have a like. It's almost like different food served on the same plate with Sony.
Yeah, like there obviously is differences, but there's I think Last of Us has a lot more in common with Ghosts, even though they are quite different games, than Halo has in common with Outer Worlds from Obsidian, or Gears of War has in common with. Hell, even Halo and Gears of War are quite different.
Oh, yeah.
Games, right? Like, there feels like there is a smorgasbord of like variety in what, and again, it's still at the moment a potential of what Microsoft could be putting out more than, because we haven't had studios for so long. We haven't had many studios for so long.
Again, I think with most of them being smaller studios that are used to making smaller games and this, that, and the other, even with the extra money behind them, they aren't necessarily suddenly going to go and make a 30-hour epic. And for you saying, all right, well, let's see 2 games a game every 2 months or 3 months or even 4 months, having those 15 smaller studios as well as the big 3 means that you've got, you could have a Halo 1 year, followed by Gears the next year, followed by Perfect Dark the following year, and then underneath them every year you could have 4 or 5 Xbox exclusive titles.
Touching about what we discussed with Ninja Theory as well, I think that's the other thing they did, right? They bought a bunch of studios that have had to sell themselves off a lot, right? They've had to sell their services to bigger studios to help them. So they've bought a bunch of studios that are used to working, sending parts of their teams off to work on other things. I mean, while Sony owns a bunch of star studios.
Yeah.
Sony owns studios that are used to being stars, like we're Naughty Dog, we're Sucker Punch, we're Santa Monica, right?
And I think that's like where that might change with Sony is when the inevitable Uncharted sequel comes, because it isn't Naughty Dog that's making it. So when one of their like secondary studios, admittedly still a big one, but like not one of the big ones, starts making the Uncharted sequel, that's when and especially with their new branding of Sony Studios being on the boxes and stuff like that, and everyone trying to feel like it's one big unit, at least on the outside, we might see something interesting there. But yeah, I mean, going back to Fable, obviously you've got a studio there who are famous for making driving games. They are a British team, so in theory they've got the humour there. Ninja Theory are also British based. They're not strictly a British team because they're an international unit, but they're British based. You could have it there.
Ninja Theory help them with the combat, with
the combat, with some of the writing, with the character models and stuff like that. Anything that like I forget what the name of the team is. Playground Games. Anything that Playground Games isn't quite there yet with.
Yeah.
You've got a friendly studio down the road.
potentially finally have the potential to have the Fable that Peter Molyneux promised all those years.
Yeah, because I mean,
ago.
Like the Horizon games are incredible open world landscapes. Like they could very, very easily build with the skills that they've got together, and even the engine that they use for making their Forza Horizon games. They've got all of these assets and all these things that, the art style's going to have to change. They'll have to change some color here and this, that, and the other. They've got all these things that they've already made to build from. They can take a tree from this and a tree from that. They can take, some water mechanics and
take the Forza Horizon map, drop the modern structures out of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
you're probably halfway to a Fable map, right?
I mean, the thing is that obviously the latest one's set in Britain anyway. So why not? Why not take as your base, as you say, take the town out of it, which actually the main town in it is Edinburgh, which has a bloody old big castle in it anyway.
I've been very tempted to actually go back and play some of the 360 Fables, because obviously they're on Game Pass, so easy enough for me to play and kind of revisit them a bit. So we've said we're gonna get Motorsport, we're probably gonna get Fable, we're definitely getting Halo. We might not see Perfect Dark. Do you think it's first party only, isn't it? So we're not likely to see third party exclusives? We saw them at the previous event.
I think if they've got something to show, obviously if there's if they've got something that will stand out, then yes, I think they will. It depends on whether they do or not, to be honest.
We'll see Psychonauts 2.
Yeah, definitely.
Double Fine, that'll be there.
Battletoads.
Battletoads, they'll show off again. That should be out. That's out this year.
Yeah. It's a launch exclusive. It's launch day, as far as I know.
But I have a feeling they potentially pushed that to launch day then. It is rare, isn't it?
It is rare. Yeah.
Rare are keeping the. They're probably the ones who should be making it.
Rare's got Battletoads. They'll have an update for
Sea of Thieves. Maybe they'll show off a kind of Sea of Thieves running on.
Well, they've got another game coming as well. So Rare's of the game, which looks like a fantasy game. So.
Rare are a studio that I think could find their way again, especially in the new Microsoft, right?
I mean, the thing is, as many have said, Rare isn't Rare anymore. So it isn't really a case of finding themselves again. It's finding the right people to recreate what Rare once was. So, maybe they will, maybe they won't.
From all, like I say, we discussed it the other day. From all accounts, Sea of Thieves is a hell of a good time if that's what you want.
I just think the messaging with it before it got launched was so bad. Because I mean, at the time, I was watching pretty much every IGN show.
It came out because I was at
Funny Show, and I was watching 15, 20 hours of gaming podcasts a week because of the time of day I was awake and stuff like that.
I was at the EGX the year before it launched.
Yeah.
When they were showing it off, and it was very slug-worthy.
Yeah, I mean that was the thing.
But Microsoft themselves were very it was coming out in a year where that was Microsoft's one big exclusive, right?
Oh yeah, that was the other that was the miserable thing about it. That in theory that was their big game that year.
Yeah.
And it was one I actually had. Again, I was watching 15 to 20 hours worth of gaming podcasts a week, and I had absolutely no idea what the game was, other than you and three mates can pretend to drink some beer on a pirate ship.
Which is what it still fundamentally is, right? But they've done
Yeah, but I mean,
They
it wasn't
supported
like
it
they
well
showed there was
post-launch.
stories and they were this that. Like it was very late in the game that you actually found out that it was anything more than just dicking around. Like
Yeah, I feel it's a game a bit like No Man's Sky, right, where it's had a lot of
yeah, it's No Man's
working
Sea.
working post-launch to kind of make it. And again, it's something if I had someone to play it with, I could quite happily while away an evening playing it. I think.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I couldn't, but
I
it
don't
was
even think doing anything either. I think
yeah.
just
It
sailing a
seems like the
ship.
perfect hub for just hanging out, yeah.
Yeah,
Especially in like these digital days where
yeah.
like with pandemics and even like with us, like living across the country from each other. It's not like we can
Go hang
physically.
out on a pirate ship for an hour.
Yeah, let's go and down. Yeah, let's go and like get
Yep.
virtually drunk with some pirates. So
Yeah, maybe. Oh, there's another pirate ship. Let's see if we can go and
yeah,
sink them.
yeah, get some plunder some booty. So as they say.
And it's certainly because Ubisoft are obviously still working on their online pirate ship game, right?
I doubt they are. I really
I
don't.
hope they're
I,
not.
I think it's gone.
If we're
Uh,
lucky, right?
at,
But
at best, for that game now, it's been reintegrated into a future Assassin's Creed. Um,
one can only hope. But if they are still working on it, right, and it comes out between Sea of Thieves
mm,
and that,
mm.
that one mechanically might be sounder, but Sea of Thieves has a lot more personality to it.
Well, I mean, I think the only thing with that the Ubisoft one is that it screams PC player. Like if you like for the people who want a good proper tactical like sea battle type thing that like it
It's not even that. It's the ship stuff from Assassin's Creed 4 stripped out.
yeah, but then it was meant to be expanded and made even more detailed and
And
stuff.
Assassin's Creed 4 was a launch PS4
Yeah.
Xbox
Mm,
One game, right?
yeah.
So, like,
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah,
Do we see Lockhart to wrap this section of the discussion up anyway?
I am not sure.
Mm, I think if I'm right and Halo goes first, then yes, because I don't think that any of the other games,
Yeah,
unless they've done a sneaky deal with Marvel and they've got their equivalent of Spider-Man, like maybe they've got an X-Men game or something like that. Like if they've got a Wolverine game, which would
yeah.
theory suit Microsoft, maybe that goes last.
I think
But yeah, I think if Halo goes first, then yes, we're going to see the Lockhart close out the show.
I think what it's going to depend on is if, because I have a feeling we might see Sony prices this week as well.
Well, they've already said that the official pre-orders will start going soon, and that they won't leave people in the dark when they do go live.
I can see the pre-orders going live
Mm,
either Friday morning or Wednesday night to completely try and take the thunder out of.
yeah,
And I think if they go Wednesday night,
yeah,
that will allow Microsoft to decide whether they want to do Lockhart or not. Because effectively, it's probably a bunch of pre-recorded segments, which they could easily pull one of them
oh
out.
yeah. I mean,
And
it'll be exactly what the Sony one was. I doubt any of it's going to be live.
yeah,
It'll be exactly what the Sony one was. It's been like the video will have been finalized for a week now. So you're right. If they need to, they can do a Lockhart version and they can do a non-Lockhart version.
yeah.
Like, and
I
they'll
think
already
it's all
record.
going to depend on whether Sony potentially do a price first.
Mm,
I think Sony would be better off waiting till after the event. But if
I
they
think
want to try and
I think they would, because the other thing is that Microsoft could shock everyone, and if they unveil Lockhart, they could give Lockhart a price.
yeah,
Show the Series X like just literally unveiled what the Series S literally unveil it, smack a price up there, $300 or whatever it ends up being. Because the thing is, if they can put it out at 300 as well, and then again not show the price of the Series X, then it's Sony's move.
Yeah.
And that's when they can make a decision, like, because at that, like, with Microsoft essentially having 3 different boxes for you to play with come Christmas time, they could very well have. Obviously, they're going to have the key battleground. I think is actually going to be Lockhart versus the PS5 Digital Edition, because they're going to be the ones that are affordable. And then I could still see the 2 more expensive versions being like knocking on the 600 mark.
I don't, but
I mean the thing is, they'll ideally, both companies now want the digital editions out there, because then they get all the money from the
I
game.
don't
as
think
you
we're
said
talking
before,
over 500 for any of them.
You buy a digital game here, it is £60. Whereas if you go into a shop and get the disc version, it could be as little as 40.
That's relatively unique to us, though, I think.
I know, but I mean, it's still like a case of, if in the States you go and spend $60 in Target get, albeit a small cut, but Target get a cut of that. If you go and spend exactly the same $60 on the PlayStation Store or the Xbox Store, then it all goes to them. So Sony in particular probably want to push the digital edition.
I don't think either full version, either Series X or full fat PS5, will be above 500.
Yeah, maybe.
But to close this off, most anticipated rumour, because we haven't really got anything concrete of what we're going to be announcing, other than Halo and Hellblade. So your most anticipated thing you're expecting to see?
Two things, I think. Obviously, I'm going to be predictable. I'm going to go with Forza, because I want to see what they do.
Yeah.
Because Forza, over the years, I've always been more of a Gran Turismo person, but from the very first Forza, there was always a promise of something that I don't think they've ever quite delivered on. It was a game that, like, whereas Gran Turismo, as lengthy and as, to be honest, at times dull as mainline Gran Turismo games could be, there was always just something that would keep me going to the point that I would try and complete the game. And that was like hundreds of hours of gaming. Whereas with Forza, it was always a case of I probably couldn't get past about 10, 15 hours worth of gameplay, because there was something missing.
Yeah.
And I think with Forza Horizon now certainly being the more popular of the 2 arms of Forza, and Gran Turismo Sport doing great things with essentially a stripped down game, because I watch quite a lot of Gran Turismo YouTubers, and there's one in particular who occasionally dabbles in Forza because he wants a lighter experience, because the matchmaking is nowhere near as accurate as it is on Gran Turismo. Like you'll end up facing all, like Gran Turismo, for instance, has a sportsmanship ranking, which doesn't exist in Forza. So although you might end up in a game with someone who has comparable cars or comparable skill, you might be the cleanest driver in the world, but you could end up being paired with someone who quite literally wants to murder you. And so I think that, like, it'll be interesting to see how they make Forza 7 relevant compared to Forza Horizon, and also compared to Gran Turismo. So it'll be interesting. I get the feeling when we see Forza, it's going to be 2 or 3 minutes of just throwaway Forza.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be that. I want to love Forza in the same way that I love Gran Turismo, because it would be then my big excuse.
Well, maybe you're more someone who, for the serious sports game, Gran Turismo is your game, but on the Microsoft side, Forza Horizon is a thing that's more up your street, right?
I think it would be, because like back in the day, Project Gotham Racing 3 and 4 were essentially my second favorite driving games behind Gran Turismo.
Yeah.
And I think Forza Horizon definitely now embodies what Project Gotham Racing always wanted to be. And Forza started trying to be more of a sim than Gran Turismo, and it's now less of a sim than Gran Turismo. So it's kind of dropped a little bit. And like, so I'm intrigued to see what Forza's answer is, I think.
And your second one?
Fable.
Fable's mine. I mean, Halo, I am looking forward to seeing what they're doing with Halo, but Fable is probably the thing I'm looking forward to. And two things for me, actually. Fable, whatever Obsidian is working on, but I have a feeling all we're going to see from Obsidian is, hey, Outer Worlds 2 is coming.
Yes, true. Yeah.
So Fable, yeah.
Yeah, I just think that again, it was like Xbox has always been that nearly but not quite machine for me, and I think their games have always been nearly but not quite. And Fable was one of those. It was a nearly but not quite. And I think that given Playground Games' ability to build worlds, and maybe with a little dabble from Ninja Theory, which I would love to see it, that it is a collaboration between that you could have a game there that stands a chance of not just delivering what Fable always could have been, but maybe even a game of the year.
And do we have any launch titles announced beyond Halo and Hellblade?
Fable's a chance.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Like, if it isn't launch, I don't think Fable will be that far out. I think Fable at latest will be March.
I'm pretty sure,
unless they think they've got something massive on their hands, and then it might be Christmas next year. But
see, I'm in a weird spot, right? PS5 is going to be the console I buy at launch or close to launch. It's what I want to buy.
Yeah.
I think I'm more excited because I'm more excited for what Microsoft could be giving us, though. But I partly think that's because I know Sony. I know what to expect from a PS5. I know what to expect from the games they're going to deliver me. At least now this could shift as the generation goes on, because 5 years is a long time.
Yeah.
But as it stands right now, I know exactly the experience Sony is offering me. And that's what I'm going to buy into.
Yeah.
But that's because there's alternative ways for me to experience the potential that Microsoft is offering me.
And I think that's where maybe this coming generation, Sony wins hardware, but I think Microsoft might win overall, because if xCloud works, which it might be that it's a case of by the end of the generation or the mid-cycle or whatever it is, like when the pro versions of whatever comes out, or it might be a case of like, if you are patient, by the time xCloud works, that is a game changer. Because someone like myself, I am always reluctant to buy an Xbox. Always reluctant to buy. I know I will get a PlayStation 5. There is no doubt in my mind at some point I will own a PlayStation 5. It probably won't be day one. It might not even be within 12 months of release, but at some point I will have a PlayStation 5. I know there is also a very good chance I will never have another Xbox. And I think xCloud actually, for me, almost justifies never having another Xbox.
Yeah. Then here's the other way that if you were more of an Xbox gamer, right, than you are a PlayStation gamer,
yeah,
your stance now of like, oh no, I'll have a PS5, probably won't be at launch, might be in 12 months' time.
Mm.
If you were an Xbox gamer, right, and that was still your stance,
yeah,
in November you still
Yeah.
get to play Halo.
yeah, yeah.
You don't potentially get to play Miles Morales, right?
No, and like, but then I've always like the only time I've been an early adopter really in my entire game, like proper early adopter, was the PlayStation 3, because I worked in gaming retail at the time and I could guarantee myself a console, and so I mean, arguably the PSP as well. But
I am usually an early adopter.
I think I was 6 months deep for the PS2. So other than that, like PS2 is my second most early adopted PlayStation.
Since I've had my own disposable
income,
I've generally been PS3. I wasn't. I got a 360 not long after. I got a 360 just before the PS3 launched.
Yeah.
And I had no intent to get. I was happy. I loved my GameCube. I had the PS2, and I was in my mind. I was like, you know what? I just want a Wii, and I never even bought a Wii in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I mean, the 360 in Europe was nearly a year and a half old. Year and a half old by the time PlayStation 3 came.
My friend Ryan had a 360.
Yeah, yeah.
And he went away for the weekend, and he's like, "Do you want to lend it?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Sure, I'll pay." And I loved it so much that the next kind of when I gave it back, I went to Game and I grabbed myself a 360.
Yeah.
And PS3's launch lineup wasn't strong that generation. I bought a PS3 when Uncharted came out.
Correct.
So it was not a launch PS3. It was that first batch after they'd torn the PS2s out of them. They'd taken out the memory card units.
Yeah,
yeah. PS4, I got as close to launch as near damn it, right? Like, might not have been day one, but
yeah.
It was certainly the launch holiday.
Yeah, I mean, I like
with NAC because it was the only bundle available
till the Pro.
Yeah.
So I mean, you could argue I was an early adopter of the Pro, if you'd count that as a console launch, because by the time I could afford a PlayStation 4, and I was in a position, like monetarily and indeed physically, to have a PlayStation 4. The 4 Pro was coming, so,
so you may as well wait.
I may as well wait. And it took a few months to hunt them down, because I was in Korea at the time, and like supply worldwide was quite short.
Yeah.
And so supply in a country that doesn't particularly like games consoles was very limited. And there was an official PlayStation shop within walking distance of my house, and it was still that difficult to get hold of.
I got my with my Switch. I did something I've never done before. I actually pre-ordered it for launch. Nintendo's announcement of a Switch excited me so much.
I mean, that was an early adoption for me. And again, it was because there was an official Nintendo shop near where I lived in Seoul. 2 floors up from the Sony one. So I got I got a Switch early doors. Although again, not like release time. I think it was 2 or 3 months afterwards.
But I was at work and a bunch of us got really excited for the Switch, and we all kind of jumped in at launch, and it was the kind of console that worked well with a bunch of you jumping in at launch, because we very much did for those first, everyone jokes about Nintendo adverts, right? those adverts of everyone doing the stereotypical stuff with a Switch.
Yeah.
But that first 6 months of owning a Switch, we lived that Nintendo advert life, right?
You see, that's where xCloud, if it works, will be beneficial, because suddenly you can all be Xbox Karens.
Yeah.
You can, you'll be able to meet up at work or like in a hipster bar somewhere, having an overly hopped beer, while playing some Halo multiplayer on your phone.
Well, that's the thing. I played Mario Kart in the pub.
Yeah.
I remember second year went to EGX. We all had our Switches.
Yeah.
And we all took them with us.
And why wouldn't it?
But even like when because obviously you at a video game convention, you do partake in that famous British pastime of queuing a lot.
Mm.
And Mario Kart, why in a queue, is fun. But it wasn't even that. Like you found yourself playing with strangers as well, because other people have their Switches on them.
Mm.
And it was like, and you'd be like, Mario Kart, yeah, why not? So you'd get a Mario Kart game in with other people in the queue.
I've just had a thought. We might have to speak to Ben about this and see if he'll organise it. QCon.
What, you just queue to get into another queue?
So there will be something at the end of the line. It could be anyone. It could be probably like a comic book artist or something like that. But you don't.
Disappointing compared to the queue.
It should be bitterly disappointing compared to the queue. It should be a somebody, but not necessarily a somebody who you know. So there is a point to the queue, but the real point is the journey. Well,
we were queuing for Life is Strange 2 at EGX, and it's the Life is Strange games are pretty damn good, to be fair.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. We'd done a lot of Smash Bros. Because it was a year before Smash Bros. Came out, we'd done a lot of cycling through the Smash Bros. Queue.
Yeah.
And you got through the Nintendo queues quite quick because we had so many. But it was a 5-day event, so you going over 5 days. Was it 4 days? Might have been 4 days, but you have the chance to do near enough everything if you time and pace yourself properly. So we hadn't played Life is Strange, so we got in the Life is Strange queue, and it was long. Like we must have been in that queue for nearly. Obviously, you get a load of freebies the other side of things as well. You get T-shirts and stuff. But we must have been in that queue for nearly 2 hours to play Life is Strange. A game that none of us were that fussed about playing. But by the time we realised how long the queue was going to take, you've got that sunk cost problem of, well, I've been in this queue for an hour.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not that bothered with what's at the other end of it, but I feel like I've already invested too much time to walk away.
Some quality queuing time.
Yeah, like
I mean, it's a bonding experience as well. That's it's a beautiful expression of patience.
Like one of us started reading a book. That was kind of the length of queue this was, but it was we were just we've been in it long enough where it's like we could hop out. Not all of us were in it as well, so 2 of us were elsewhere, and they played so many games by the time we got through this Life is Strange queue. And we came up and was like, well, why don't you just hop out? We'll go do something else. It's like, nope.
Yeah.
We're in this queue. We're seeing it to the end.
Yeah, we're going to platinum this queue. Or rather, as it's an Xbox discussion, we'll get 1,000 gamer points on this this queue. So I think let's round off the game show, because I think we're about 90 minutes now. So what have you been playing?
Not a lot lately. Guildlings on Apple Arcade.
Yeah.
I'm tempted to start The Last Dragon Quest because I've got it for Switch and I've not played it yet.
Yeah.
I kind of fell out of my game of Control.
Thanks for the COVID block there, just in case you transmitted it over the internet.
But yeah, I fell out of my game of Control. I need to try and get back into that before it falls off of PS Now. I dabbled in no intent to play it for long, but I put Samurai Warriors. It was on PS Now. I played a level of that.
Yeah.
Only with the intent to play a level. I just wanted to see, hey, what do the Warrior games look like these days? They look like they very much did
15 years ago, just with nicer graphics.
They are what they are, right?
You just got better textures.
But I've been painting a lot of little plastic men or little plastic ghosts for Warhammer.
Cool.
Yeah, so some physical games as opposed to the digital variety. But yeah, Guildlings, if you do have an iPhone, it is worth the $4.99 you'd pay for a month of Apple Arcade to play it. It is a nice, peaceful, relaxing RPG.
Very nice. Very nice.
More Gran Turismo, I take it?
Predominantly, yeah. Still tidying up loose ends on Red Dead Redemption 2 at the moment. I know I'm a handful of story missions away from the end now. So the collection things that I've started, I'm trying to finish off.
Yeah.
We're at the point now that as far as the collection bits go, it's really a case of sitting down for a full day with a guide open and going hunting, because all I've got to collect now are like animal pelts and stuff like that. So so I've got that to do. Gran Turismo had a couple of surprisingly good weeks, to be honest. A couple of weeks ago there was one that looked like it was going to be an absolute nothing, like a complete washout of a week. But I gave one of the races, the weekly races a go. It was just in a normal everyday car, like a little hatchback, and like some pure fluke, it ended up being the right combination of car and track, and I was at my peak 252nd in the region, so the Europe, Middle East and Africa region, for that particular race, which was pretty cool. I got loads of pole positions from it and a fair few wins. Last week, again, slightly better than I expected. It was my best race last week was a Group 3 race in Brazil at the Interlagos track, which is a track I enjoy, but I'm not great at. I'm good, not that good. So managed to get a couple of wins out of that. I don't think I got any pole positions last week, but I got a couple of wins, which was a nice surprise. And then yesterday, with the new races for the week on a Monday, I had a little crack. What's probably going to be my best race this week is one of Gran Turismo's self-built, well, not self-built, but in-house built tracks.
Yeah.
And in the normal direction round it, I'm actually quite good at it with the cars that they've chosen for this week, but they've chosen to do the reverse of the track, so it's meant a couple of hours of learning track. And I had one race yesterday where I just got battered, like physically battered. Not a case of being beaten, but just like every driver decided away. And because Gran Turismo's fiddled with their sportsmanship and penalty system at the moment, it is very easy, even if it's not your fault at the moment, to get penalty points. So I crashed and burned as far as sportsmanship went, which dragged it was so bad in that race. It actually dragged my driver rank down as well. So I ended up in the cesspit of people at the bottom of the bottom of the rankings. had a race with them, won the race because I managed to drive nice and clean, hold on while everyone else was killing each other. Luckily that dragged my ranking back up because I had a clean race and I won it. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know what will be next. I am incredibly excited for Ghost of Tsushima, but knowing that I've got some backlog to clear, I think I'm probably going to wait for it. It might even be a case of waiting until I've got a PlayStation 5.
It's a PS5 play for me, I think.
Yeah. Especially with obviously the backwards compatibility now, like even if it doesn't get an official PlayStation 5 release.
I've heard it quite regularly runs at below 30 frames per second on a launch PS4 as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely a PS5 game for me.
Yeah. Because that's the other thing we didn't discuss with Lockhart. Obviously, there's the rumours that it might be a 1080p only console.
Yeah.
However, with a guaranteed 60 frames per second, so it might be, so even if it is potentially more powerful than the Series X, not the Series X, the One X, they're going to go for efficiency over all that brute force power. But yeah, we'll see.
We'll be back to discuss what happened in it. Yeah.
Yes, we'll discuss it next week. Hope to see you all soon. Thank you very much, and see you again. Bye.